Tranquility du Jour, June 21st, 2019. Hello there, this is Kimberly Wilson, and welcome to the 458th edition of Tranquility du Jour. And happy summer for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. A reminder that on Sunday, we are doing our seasonal TDJ Live, which is a free online gathering at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can find all the information about this in the show notes. Would love to have you with us. And the show notes can be found at kimberlywilson.com/458. In this week's edition, I'm chatting with returning guest Lara Blair, and we're talking career transitions and how to listen to that voice inside nudging you in new directions. And she has a lot of experience with this and a sense of humor about it all and a lot of wonderful wisdom. Now, those of you who are new to Tranquility du Jour, you can find a link in the show notes, which will tell you a bit more about the community. And if you sign up for Love Notes, which is my mailing list I send a couple times a month, you can also access Tranquil Treasures, which is a treasure trove of sorts of PDFs, MP3s, and videos. All on the idea of how do we find more tranquility in the everyday. Also, I've recently pulled together the 6 tenets of the Tranquility du Jour lifestyle, and you'll find a downloadable PDF of this in the show notes also. And I'm curious, does it resonate? Is there anything you feel like I've missed or should be added or should be edited? Definitely reach out, let me know. hello@kimberlywilson.com. Love hearing from you. Also, the latest daybook is ready for you and available at Amazon.com. You can find a link to it in the show notes. And if you're like, what's a daybook? It's a planner, but also a lifestyle guide filled with all sorts of tips and tools for finding more tranquility in the everyday, including daily, weekly, monthly, seasonal checklists, lots of spaces for taking notes, for checking in with yourself, wellness planning, tranquil travel, all sorts of good stuff. And again, you can find out more information about this in the show notes or over at kimberlywilson.com. And then note that next Friday night, June 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we're doing an online virtual launch of the daybook for anyone who has purchased the daybook and gone through and filled out the form to get the 4 bonuses that you will receive whenever you buy the daybook from Amazon. And again, a link to all of this is in the show notes, and you'll find it on the homepage of kimberlywilson.com. And I hope you're loving the new daybook. It's been so fun to pull together. And again, I want to thank you for requesting it. And it came out of our New Year TDJ Live with the requests from so many of you that I was like, okay, I have to do this again. So I hope you're loving it. Also, if you are interested in escaping in 3 weeks to Tuscany, we have a couple spots left for that, and it will be a magical experience. It's my last scheduled retreat of 2019. And it's pretty phenomenal. And a private villa. We'll be doing daily yoga, mindfulness, and creativity sessions. And then there's also ample time for sitting poolside, reading, napping, wandering about Lucca, which was just named like one of the best Italy towns. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes too, because that's pretty cool. And we're right outside of Lucca. And finally, if you are in the Canada, Montreal area, I am going to be up there September 20th through the 22nd, leading parts of the teacher training at Luna Yoga. And would love to see you, would love to meet you. And you can find out more information about that also in the show notes. Now, without further ado, Lara Blair. So in constant pursuit of inspiration and creativity, portrait photographer Lara Blair has worn many hats. Photographer, artist, published author, a wonderful book about photographing dogs, a teacher, retreat facilitator, designer. It's all been in there at some point. She's especially enamored with connecting with women, empowering them with their own beauty and images, and igniting a spark for their own life pursuits. Laura's studio sits in a beautiful forest, right for portrait making magic. She also hosts photography retreats and destination photo shoots in the Oregon High Desert, the Southwest, and Hawaii. She's excited to embark on an empty nest adventure this year with her husband and golden retriever just north of Portland, Oregon. Welcome back, Laura.
Hello, my friend. It's so good to talk to you again.
It's so great to have you back on the show and, talking transition. And as I think about, I was actually in the waiting room of my doctor's office. And whenever I saw your post on Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh, Laura's got a fun new change ahead. So exciting.
You've kind of witnessed all my changes, haven't you?
I have. At least like a portion of them. And it's been so fun, as I think about these different career hats that you've had since I've known you. And can you talk us through some of these iterations and kind of where you are now? Like if you wanted to even share that blog post, I think listeners would love to hear that to get a little perspective as we talk transition.
Sure. Let me just read it because I wrote it in a heat of passion one night about transitioning to a new corner of my life. I'm going to be empty nester. And I wrote this. So let me share it with you. My camera and I broke up. We were on a break. So I was a photographer about 7 years ago, full-time studio. It was 7 years ago. I was burned out. I owned and operated my portrait studio for 13 years with a couple of rebrands in there just to make it complicated. My New York time, 3 years of my husband's job, was amazing, but cured me of people for a while. Hence my shift to dog photography upon my return to the Pacific Northwest. We live in Washington. We love our dogs out here. I had great clients, worked the hours I wanted, and did a ton of charity work for the Humane Society and other dog rescues. I literally wrote the book on dog photography. Amherst Media commissioned me after reading an article I'd written for Portrait Photography magazine to pen a book on the subject. It took me a year, and I was holding a real live book in my hands. My words, my images, my dream. I always loved writing, and this was such a cool opportunity. Well, in typical Lara Blair style, after said book was on the market, and hopefully I could tell people I'd literally, quote unquote, written the book on the subject, you think I would run with it. Like run like hell, chase after that dream kind of sprinting. This did not happen. What's wrong with you, girl? My conscience seemed to scream at me, always in the shower. Why is that? Mom guilt. That's what. It's a terrible thing. My 2 daughters were young, and I was feeling extremely selfish as a creative person with my own business who just happened to be a mom. I was so much more afraid of my own success than I was of my failure. I played small, like so many women. I didn't believe you could be truly successful in your own out-of-the-home endeavors and still be the mother a child needs. I told myself all kinds of silly lies, and sadly, I believed them. I know I'm not alone in these thoughts, which is comforting. It kind of sad that so many of us have drunk the Kool-Aid, so to speak. Enter summer of 2019, the year my children fly the coop. I'm so proud of the women they've become, and I feel good about their place in the world. They are amazing girls, and I'm enjoying watching them jump off this high dive that is the college years. It is also a very exciting thing to be doing this business with fresh eyes, sans guilt, and self-doubt. I feel more creatively energized and ignited with inspiration than ever before. I've worked like a dog, to get this up and running again, and I am there in spades. Feels really, really good. Funny thing, I don't think I could have photographed women over 40 when I was younger if I tried. I just didn't get it. Boy, do I get it now. There is an amazing confidence that comes with age, even when the body sags, droops, fails us. I'm feeling so much clarity about my purpose and how I can show up in the world for others. I love showing up for my clients too, just sitting in their closet, such an intimate experience, talking about what lights them up and showcasing the shoes to go with it. I love getting to know these women before there's a camera between us. And I love watching them come alive on the backdrop with the brilliance that has been hiding under quote unquote real life. So I guess I'm back in full force, I might add. I love a second wind. If you've been photographed by me before, it's time for a new close-up. If you haven't, come on over and experience the shoot of your life. You will see yourself in the newest, sweetest light imaginable. I promise. Yeah, it's weird to read it after writing it so long ago.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And, listeners, I think it does. It takes you through her journey career-wise. And What I love about this, Laura, is like you are not afraid, or at least it doesn't come across that you are, to make these shifts.
I am.
You are. Okay.
I am. I run afraid though. I just I'm on fire, but I'm running into it. Yeah, I think it's because now I'm realizing what I missed the first time around. And, entrepreneurial wise, because I'm very much a creative person. I live on the right side of my brain, but it doesn't mean I can't learn the left side, and I'm finally realizing I'm so scared to do it, but I have to do it. I've got unfinished business, with the business, so to speak. So I'm afraid, but I'm excited. And the other thing is I have a plan this time around. Unlike the past, I actually have a business plan, which is always exciting and feels a little bit more comforting when you jump into something again.
Now, what would you say to someone who's listening and wants to make a transition of some sort, whether it might be a relationship or a city or a job or, a particular identity that they have, but they're scared to take that step. What has given you the fearlessness, even though you're fearful, to actually do this?
I think the biggest part is hearing the voice, the small voice within. And we are in a busy, scary, crazy time that's so noisy, and we don't get quiet enough to really get clear. And I will tell you this, I journal every day. I know you're a big journaler, so I'm preaching to the choir, but journaling is one of the biggest pieces for me because I just feel like all the stuff comes out. And morning pages, I do my morning pages and I do them without fail. And when you see a pattern, and for me it was, you should do this again. You should do this again. You could do this again. You could start this studio again and make it even better than it was. And I'm teaching, right now. And believe it or not, I'm done in 3 days, like done, bizarre. I started journaling and listening for the voice. So I think people need to get quiet. They need to pay attention to the things that are shiny. I call them their look something shiny, like Dory and Finding Nemo, look something shiny. It's all the things that are floating around you that grab your curiosity. And one of the coolest things, it's one of my favorite Elizabeth Gilbert quotes about, when you follow your curiosities, you'll find your passions. And once you find your passions, it's like you can't ignore them. And I think all the logistics of life, I've got to stay in this job because of the money, or my spouse really doesn't want me to go in this direction. I think you have to be brave and not consider it asking permission, but asking for support and taking the passion that you think you really want to do. Let's say you want to quit your day to day and you want to do your own gig, and this, you did it so many years ago. You have to be brave, but you also have to have a plan. So hearing the small voice inside, not being afraid to ask for support, and then having a plan. So I will tell you, when I sat down with my spouse, we've got 2 kids in college, would I quit this nice, secure job where I have insurance and a pension and the whole 9 yards, to quit all of that and say, yeah, I'm going to give this photography studio a go again? I'm not sure he would have been super thrilled. And again, I wasn't asking permission. I laid it out and I had a really good plan. And for someone like me who really does have trouble with the business side of things, it was so empowering to write down the numbers and know what my cost of doing business was and know what I need to shoot every month. And I also was able to sell it to him in that we can have time together now. Our kids are gone and I don't have to go to work. I can make my schedule what I want it to be and we can be together, which was also a huge, exciting thing to be able to share. So having a plan is key. Just taking a risk is great, but you have to have some kind of plan ahead of you to know where you're going to go. And you don't have to have the whole thing mapped out. I certainly don't. But I really feel like I know the basic numbers that need to get me started, and then I'll take it from there. And believe me, I got really big dreams and plans on this time around. I'm pretty excited about it. But I know it's going to take a little bit of time, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm 48. I feel like I'm just getting started. It's the strangest thing.
I love that. Just getting started middle age, which is I think it's so important to keep in mind, right? Because I think oftentimes people can feel like, it's like I'm past my prime, or, I'm 60. There's no way I can do this now. And it's amazing to see women in their, even golden years, right? Like picking up painting or,
my gosh, yeah.
Various things. So we're never too old to stop growing.
A lot of my clients, they're post 40, post 50. I have never seen such confidence and brilliance. I don't know if it's because women who come to me are ready to have their clothes up, But a lot of them have they've gone through cancer or a divorce or a change in job, or they just want to capture what they look like at 50 or whatever it is. They say the coolest stuff about what they want to do. It's like talking to someone who just gets out of college, and they have all these big plans, but even better because you're wiser and you're more financially secure and you want to figure out where you want to go in the second half, and you're realizing time is short. And when you feel, you feel the intensity of getting older and knowing, man, I got half left, there's just no time to waste. And picking up painting, I did that too. I do a lot of art myself, and I've done that for the last few years. And it is so empowering to realize, hey, I can do this. Because I never thought, I can't paint. I can take pictures, but I'm not necessarily an artist, quote unquote. You know what? Darn it, I am. And it's taken me a little bit of time to figure it out, but it feels so good to be jumping into it and watching other women jump into it in my area around me and across the country, because I follow, women like you and so many people who are making their dreams a reality. It's very inspiring to me and it makes me feel ready to jump in watching other women do it as well.
What would you say has been the hardest part throughout kind of these shifts and changes? Is it describing to people what you do, or being like, oh, I'm going to go back to teaching, and then people being like, why? What's been the hardest for you?
Well, funny story. I was sitting getting my hair done. I call her my therapist rather than my therapist or hairstylist. She's my therapist. And we sit there and we talk about life and everything. And I told her, oh my goodness, I think I want to do photography again. And she just started laughing. And she said, because she's been doing my hair for like 15 years. She said, I've been waiting for you to make a switch. I said, what do you mean? And my last name is Blair. And she goes, it's the Blair Switch Project. And we both just started laughing, and we couldn't get it together. And we laughed for about 10 minutes. And I looked at her and said, is that how you see me? And she goes, no, it's a good thing. So I think the hardest part for me was that I felt flaky for so long about my 7-year itch, because it really is about 7 years I reinvent myself. Even in my studio, I photographed people for years. And then about 7 years in, I just did dogs. Like that's when you and I, connected with your pup, Mr. Louis. I was so into dogs for about 5 years, and then I needed to shift again. I'm just this person who needs to move and shift and feel wind, around me. And that Blair Switch Project thing, it's funny how I immediately went to, oh my gosh, I'm a flake. Why am I changing my career so often? What is wrong with me? And then through journaling and really taking a look at it, I realized that I think it's my superpower, because my main mission in life is to create and to inspire people. And when I teach, I love my middle schoolers so much. I teach writing and social studies, but I do a lot of life lesson stuff and empowerment and, the whole thing. I'm that crazy teacher who wears costumes and stuff. I think it's my theater background. But I love to inspire my students, and I love to inspire women who come to me to let them know how beautiful they are and that they're just on the right path and they need to be recognized. So why not, if I'm switching around and I'm doing different jobs, consider my overall mission to create and inspire? And why does it have to be the same classroom for 30 years or the same studio for 25? It can morph and change throughout my life as long as my mission is clear. So yeah, I thought it was a flaw, and now I'm kind of seeing it as a strength, which is interesting.
Absolutely, because you think of how many of us can easily stay in things that we've outgrown, like say the 30-year classroom, and it's like, 40 more years to retirement or whatever. And, it's great to see people actually being like, little reinvention every 5 to 7 years. That's what I've been doing, and that's what's felt best for me.
Right. And I've stopped kind of explaining it too. I just say, yep, this is where I'm headed next, and I just throw up my hands, and people who know me and love me get excited for me, and they're on board. I've never had anyone in my circle say, what is wrong with you? They always say, I was wondering what you're going to do next. And it's made me feel really loved and appreciated, and just kind of for who I am, and that comes with age too. I think in my 20s and my 30s, I just really tried to figure out, okay, what's going to be acceptable to everybody else. And now I just want to feel like if it's acceptable to me and happy for me, as long as I'm doing good in the world, that's all that matters. And I did get a letter from my child, because I suffer so much with mom guilt now, but when they were younger, I didn't feel like you could be a creative mother, like I said in my post. And I got this card from my daughter on Mother's Day, just this last one. She's almost 18. And she said, when you switch around and all the things that you do and you decide you're going to do them and then you just jump in and do it, because it inspires me to feel like I can do the same. And boy, if there's any message, I wasn't sure that I could get that across, but she said it. So it just made me cry, because that's the one thing I want for my girls in this world, to do what inspires them, to be around good people, and feel fulfilled. And I know that she was frustrated with me when I was doing my business and she was little, because I wasn't completely available. But the flip side of it is I have taught her, jump in, follow your passions, and it will all be okay. So yeah, that was a win. That was a big one. Oh my gosh, ugly cry.
Well, what do you know now that you wish you knew at the start of your career? Like, is there anything, I think what you just said about the Mother's Day card, and the mom guilt, I think is a wonderful thing to keep in mind, of like, actually you're serving as an example to your daughters or sons. But what would you say?
Oh, if I could write a letter to that, 29-year-old woman who was starting her photography business, it would be to really choose wisely in terms of the business itself. Choose what you want to do. So whether you're a designer or a business person or whatever you have chosen as your path, to do it in a way that fits your personality, and people will come. That whole "if you build it, they will come" thing. It's actually, I heard this recently from a photographer that I adore. She said it's not really the phrase "if you build it, they will come." It's "if you build it, he will come." And for me, the he is the client that really gets me and what I'm creating, and not to serve the masses. I really am a high-end studio, low volume. I just really cater to the needs of my people, and I do home consultations, and I sit in closets, and we sit on the backdrop and have therapy session, and I am able to do that. And granted, I'm an investment, but I really, really take the time with my people, and I just need a few people, who really get it. When I was younger, it was like, oh my gosh, I just got to get butts and seats. We got to figure this out. It's so not like that anymore. It has been, who do I want to work with? What kind of art do I want to create? And what kind of experience do I want them to remember? And I don't apologize for the investment part, which in the past I would kind of look at the floor and say what I charge. I don't do that anymore, because I know what I provide is really big, and a lot of time commitment, a lot of love and care, right down to my packaging, which is kind of how I feel about you and what you have created in your businesses. And you've been a really good example for me in that, your brand, you go all in and you give everything you can, and you make them feel like, a queen or king. And then you have a client for life. And I truly believe that now. And I don't know if I would have believed that when I first started out. It just takes time and experience, and also knowing what it feels like to have somebody else treat you like that. I've had experiences with services or whatever throughout my life, and I'm like, oh man, that person really gets it. I'm loyal to them. There's this goofy little Thai restaurant in my town, and I feel like I'm cheating on her if I go to any other Thai restaurant, because she treats us so well, like family, and from a business standpoint, I look at her, I'm like, I want to do that. I want people to look at me and say, I only want to be photographed by her. And yeah, it's taken me a while to get it, but boy, it's ingrained in me now, which I'm grateful for.
You mentioned earlier the idea of dreaming big, right? So this new iteration, different than before you were photographing dogs. And so what would you say, like, are some of your big dreams that you have now for this next chapter?
Oh, I love dreaming big. It's exciting. Well, one of them is I love to travel, and I love photographing in different places other than the Northwest, even though we're beautiful here. I will take like a giant red dress with the big train and go to the sand flats. So that's my destination portraiture stuff, is what I'm really hoping to do. I have a whole plan for Las Cruces, Mexico, and Santa Fe. I think I was secretly made to live in the Southwest. George O'Keeffe is my spirit animal. And I go to Santa Fe every year with a friend, and I really want to do a retreat there and make women feel amazing, just a small group. I'm doing a retreat in Bend in our beautiful little mountain home, July 17th, and that's what's coming up soon. I'll give you the link to that if you want to put it in the show notes, but I've got a couple spots left for that. It's a small group, and it's just photographing in the high desert, so really dramatic scenery, really gorgeous. As the Deschutes River, I have a vision about shooting in the river with a big dress, and I like to I'll steal a quote from Rachel Hollis, that whole go big or go home thing.
Right.
And she says, I never go home. I never go home. And I can so relate to that. I go big or go home. I don't go home. I never have. And even when I make a decision, I'm going to finish something and go on, I close it down and I move on to the next thing. And I've never regretted it. I've never had oh my gosh, what have I done? And to me, dreaming big, I'm thinking I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. And hopefully if I build it, she will come. So the destination portraiture is one. I would love to do photographer retreats because this isn't my first rodeo. I've learned a lot, and I would love to help other photographers kind of figure it out because it's such a learning curve. Oh my gosh. And it's a massive industry it's just inundated with a million people, but there's a way to do it to reach the perfect client. So I would love to teach other photographers. And then my other one is I do this fine art series. I do a lot of projects. And one of my fine art series is called Brave and True, and it's middle school girls because I just have been working with them for so long and I find them really special. And it's just really terrifying waters, in middle school. And I love watching the girls who are true to themselves and some of them who are just pretend to be navigating those waters. And I'm going to do a class at my studio for girls where we do photography and art, a lot of body positivity, empowerment, how to use your gifts, how to communicate with other girls, because I find those are gaps when I'm teaching. I'm watching it happen in real time, and I feel like I have a message that I can relay to them in a studio setting. And then I want to have a full exhibit of these girls. So it would just be them in their element, no makeup, just come as they are, photograph them. I want to do an exhibit of them as well as some other exhibits and ideas. My brain is firing on oh my gosh, all the synapses are like exploding right now because I'm back at it and that's how my brain works. But one project at a time, one destination shoot at a time, I feel like I've got a good, 7 more years in me to get this going. So maybe more. Who knows?
You can definitely hear it in you, right? The excitement of what opportunities lie ahead and, how to just kind of keep kind of shaping it and morphing it in a way that really excites you and feels good. And I love that about you. I think it's so important. And it is so important to dream big and think okay, what else can I do with this? How else can I impact people through my work?
Thank you. And I feel the same way about you. You did a great job of showing me so many years ago. I think I started following you 13, 14 years ago. What do I love? How can I make this work? And you're really good too about live. You stay in the same apartment. You kind of maintain these things, these solids for you, and then live the big dreams outside of that. And watch. Look what happened. Look where you are, and look what you're doing. It was a really big inspiration to me, and I have followed it along the years of, your clothing line. You wanted yoga clothes to wear and be able to wear them outside of yoga, and so you created Tranquility and. Those kinds of things have been cues for me. What do I want? I want a photographer that's going to do full service and do home consults and sit in my closet and take all the guesswork out of it and make me feel like $1 million. Well, if I want that, I can create it for someone else. And that has been a really fun thing to learn over the years. So thank you for just allowing me to follow along too with your journey.
Oh my gosh. No, absolutely. It's been so fun to have you a part of it. And I actually remember a letter that you wrote to me at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I remember you put in
I was a total fangirl. Oh my God.
I have it still, because it was just the sweetest letter. And you included little red ruby shoes. Do you remember that?
I do. I only gave those to people. I only gave 5 of those away. Yeah, I do. That's cool. You still have it.
Isn't it funny what you remember?
Yeah. And that whole thing about you've had the power all along, it's such a cliche, but I think in the letter to my 29-year-old self, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have no idea what you're capable of and what you're going to go through too, with my kids and other things that have been along the years here, a lot of just heavy stuff that everyone deals with in their lives, that you are so much stronger and you have so many more chances at this. Stop acting like it's your one shot, because it's not. The reinvention piece is the most important thing that we forget when we're young, that we have another chance. Look at people who, like you said, start painting in their 60s or 70s, and then have this full-on career. I'm so inspired by women who get that later. Wait a minute, it's not done. I'm not done. Don't put a fork in me yet. I'm not done.
Totally. So not done. And I think what you said too about reinvention that I just want to highlight for listeners is that that's the beauty kind of from a mindfulness angle is that we can reinvent ourselves like every day. Okay, we're not going to start like a new career, but it is this idea of like every day we start or we become more of who we are, right? And it's this idea of beginning again every day or every moment, you know, it's like, oh, that wasn't really the me I want to be. It's like, okay, well, begin again and really ask yourself, what is the ideal me? What does it look like? What does it feel like? You know, how can I best show up and represent that to the world?
Yeah. And the authentic piece about like if you screw up, you know, or something didn't go well I just don't think people go back very often and say, you know what, I thought about that and that's not how I wanted it to go. And this is what I really, you know, want to say or want you to know. And I've been braver about that and I've been responding more and not reacting. You know, I'm really trying. I think meditation helps me with that. Just making sure that I am truly saying what I want to say. And if I screw it up, I can go back and say, wait a minute, let's rewind. You know, it's so funny because I don't know if I did that very often when I was younger. And now I'm like quick to fix it, especially with family, my children. You know, I can text back and say, I totally didn't mean to be snippy. I'm sorry. And you're right. I know you're feeling this and you're feeling that, and validating people's feelings. Yeah, it's just the coolest thing to think, who am I really wanting to be right now? And if I mess it up, what do I really want to say to fix it? That's a good thing to do for sure.
Well, Lara, any final thoughts before we move into our last question, but any final thoughts you'd like to share with listeners on transitions in general?
I would say if you are having an idea that keeps popping up for you and like it won't go away, like the little fly in the room, pay attention to it because you never know where it could lead you. And it certainly doesn't have to be a job. It can be a side hustle. It can be a hobby. It can be something you do once a year, but don't discount those things that keep popping up. And I think women in particular, because we're caretakers and we have a serious sense of responsibility, not that men don't, but women just really have that, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be a good mom if I go in this direction. I certainly have experience with that. But there's a reason that it's popping up. And take note, journal like crazy, and ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen if I followed this little breadcrumb?
It's such a good reminder. What's the worst thing that could happen? Because even from a therapeutic angle, you know, it's like we worry. Well, what will people think? What will people think? And then you just keep kind of going down the path. Okay, well, so they'll think you're flaky. Then what? Okay, well, then I, you know, and then you realize like, yeah, this stuff is not necessarily what we spend so much time worrying about. It's not necessarily life or death. And it can sometimes help put things in perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
So my last question for you, as you know, as a podcast listener, how do you find tranquility in your everyday? I mean, you've mentioned painting, you've mentioned traveling, you've mentioned journaling.
I meditate. It's a big one every day. It helps me avoid anxiety, even about making big decisions. I don't think I freak out as much because I go to that place, you know, every morning. And I would like to think I am a yoga practitioner, but man, I have the hardest time. But that, when I do it, you know, like 15 minutes a day, that's a good form. And then my last one is baths. I'm a big bath person. And with essential oils and candles and the whole 9 yards, it's like Eden in there. I love it. I try to do that as much as I can.
Beautiful. Thank you. Such great information and such great reminders on, you know, really kind of peeling back the layers to continue to become who we want to be.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much. I just, you know, I'm a fan and rooting for you all the way. And we got to get you out here so we can photograph you with that pug. Got to do Miss Bellstar and those little teeth.
Oh my God. Those teeth. So you can find Lara at larablairphotography.com. That's LARABLAIR photography.com. There's also a link to find her over on Instagram at larablairphotography.com and on Facebook under the same handle, Lara Blair Photography. Also, In the show notes, you'll find links to various things that we talked about, from the blog post that Lara Blair mentioned at the top of our interview, also her destination portrait experience, which sounds amazing. And I will say, we took beloved Louie to her home, back in, I think it was 2013, and she shot some gorgeous images of Louie, and he, of course, adored her. So I can speak from experience that she is very talented and just so lovely, as you probably picked up from this podcast interview. Also, there's a link to our first interview where we chat Photography 101 from 2013. There's also a link to my latest blog post, which is about 10 days with Mama Wilson. My mom was in town for obviously 10 days. So she came in the day before Yoga and the Animals. And then she was there for TDJ Soiree, our VIP meet and greet. And then for the following 7 days, as we did all sorts of fun adventures around Washington, D.C. So there's a blog post with some photos. Also, there's a link again to the TDJ Live that's happening this Sunday. Also, the link to the TDJ tenants I mentioned and the piece about Lucca, Italy. Now, finally, you can find Tranquility du Jour online. I've got links in the show notes to Year of Tranquility, my book that came out in January, and it comes with 5 bonuses. The new Daybook that comes with 4 bonuses, including next Friday's book launch, online book launch event. Also, you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook and YouTube. And I do owe a video, so I hope to get some videos recorded over the next few days, and you'll find those over on our YouTube channel. Finally, there's also links to Tranquility, my 6 books, Tranquility-filled e-courses, the podcast app, and learn about my passion for animals. Finally, if you have a moment to pin a review on iTunes or share this podcast via social media, I would be so grateful. My hope is that it helps other people find more tranquility in their lives. And then also, if you have a moment to pin a review of any of my books on Amazon or Goodreads, also would be so grateful. All right, so wishing you a delightful weekend ahead. I'm actually off to a 2-day ballet workshop that culminates with a little performance. I think it's 10 minutes, but Tim's so excited and he'll be there with bells on to watch. So wish me luck on Sunday, and I'll see many of you hopefully Sunday night for TDJ Live. Have a great weekend and a happy summer. Namaste.